Thanks to Babbel, a language learning app, for sponsoring this episode. If you're interested in growing your language skills, SciShow viewers get up to 65% off with a 20-day money-back guarantee when you use our link. The ways that we live our lives online are changing very fast. When I first got on the internet, no one was predicting a world anything like the one we are living in today. The tools that have made that possible, for good and bad, are really cool and advanced, and for the most part, we do not understand them that well. Like most of us don't really know what HTTP means, let alone what impact inviting billions of people into many-to-many communication has had and will continue to have on society. But that does not mean that we're stopping the changing, or even slowing it down. Here's what I'll say to start out. Blockchains are controversial. Controversial because of how they are used, what they enable, and the impacts that they are having and may have on our world. And when something is the subject of controversy, the expectation is that everyone should have an opinion. But in this case, we at SciShow are not offering an opinion. Instead, we want to interface with a reality. These tools exist. They are not going to stop existing, and they are often extremely energy inefficient, but maybe they don't need to be. First, though, let's define some of what we're talking about. This technology is fairly new as far as the whole history of digital tech is concerned, but it is quickly becoming more and more popular. Cryptocurrencies are a kind of digital currency that is transferred and tracked and authenticated by a distributed network of users rather than something like a centralized bank. The idea of a cryptocurrency is that each unit of the currency is interchangeable. Just like a dollar is a dollar, a Bitcoin is a Bitcoin. They're all identical and worth the exact same amount. There's a word for this. They are fungible. NFTs are non-fungible tokens. They are also just information stored on a ledger maintained by a distributed network of users, but each NFT is different and not interchangeable. This means you can have them contain information, like saying this token represents ownership of this piece of digital art, or this token represents ownership of 1% of the rights to a song. How people use them is legally complex, but basically they're just notes on a ledger that can be marked as being owned or not owned by a person, or a wallet. Now, the real secret sauce to both cryptocurrencies and NFTs is the blockchain, a digital ledger that keeps track of all the transactions made and thus who owns what. Because, we're all aware that you can easily make digital copies of something. Like if you have a movie file and you send it to me, we both have the movie file. But if you have $1 and you send it to me, we don't both have the dollar. We need a system to keep track of where the dollar is and prevent people from making infinite copies of them. This is what makes blockchains a valuable tool. The blockchain is a public ledger that is stored on many, many computers all over the world. Everyone who mines Bitcoin has the exact same copy of the ledger, which is the blockchain. And the blockchain has a record of every single transaction of that currency that has ever happened. As more transactions happen, the blockchain keeps getting longer. Currently, the Bitcoin blockchain is around 400 gigabytes, so big, but maybe not as big as you'd think. So Bitcoins are not files, they are notes on a file that lots of people have access to and keep track of. And because everyone has a copy of the blockchain, no one can change it in one place without getting caught by all the other people. But also, you need to be able to add new transactions to the ledger, because part of the whole point is moving these representations of ownership around, and you don't just want anybody to be able to do it. Now, if you want to go deeper into how all this works, our video from 2016, when the ledger was just 100 gigs, is still very good and totally applicable. But basically, to add a transaction to the ledger, you have to solve super complex math problems. And if you do that, you solve the problem and you add a new block of transactions to the chain. As a reward, you get a bit of the underlying currency of the blockchain. This is what people are talking about when they say that they are mining crypto. They are maintaining the ledger and adding new blocks of transactions and verifying those transactions. Each block is verified by several users, so it's almost impossible to forge a transaction. But you don't get to do any of that unless you are the one solving the super complex math problems. You can't make money mining if you don't solve the problems first, so people are in an arms race to solve these problems very quickly. But the math problem only exists to make it inherently expensive to add and verify transactions. So expensive that it is impossible for a bunch of hackers to work together to add false transactions. And since some cryptos are now worth a fair chunk of change, there is more and more incentive for people to join the mining race. Enter the environmental impact. These math problems are inherently consistently and intentionally tough to solve. People are competing with each other to solve them, and so there's tremendous economic incentive to buy extremely expensive, state-of-the-art computer hardware and use a tremendous amount of energy to solve useless math problems so that you can be the one who adds the blocks and makes the money. And depending on how that power is generated, that means a lot of carbon emissions. On top of all that, mining and all this hardcore computing generate a lot of electronic waste. So the question then becomes whether it is possible to reduce energy demand, waste, and overall footprint for cryptocurrencies. When it comes to crypto, miners need to have a lot of computing power because the more power you have, the quicker you can make guesses, and the more likely you are to be the one to solve the problem and get the cash. And NFTs run into the same problem because they are also stored on ledgers that use this same system and are bought and sold with cryptocurrencies. Now, the numbers on this aren't super easy to get, but they are mind-boggling. Research done by the University of Cambridge in the UK estimated that as of November 2018, the top 6 cryptocurrencies consumed between 52 and 111 terawatt-hours of energy every year. To put that in perspective, it's about the same amount of energy as the entire country of Belgium used in 2016. And this just gets worse as currencies get more popular. When cryptocurrencies were first coming onto the scene, there weren't that many new transactions being added to the ledger, and the currencies weren't worth all that much, so the stakes weren't super high. That meant that the computer power and energy needed weren't massive. Most miners could probably do it from their home computers. But as this tech has become more popular, miners have needed whole warehouses of super powerful computers to outcompete other mining rivals. And that energy consumption keeps on growing. Cambridge researchers estimate that at the time of the filming of this episode, Bitcoin will use more than 120 terawatt hours of electricity this year. That's more than a 40% increase from last year. In 2020, the Central Bank of the Netherlands estimated that a single Bitcoin transaction produced around 402 kilograms of carbon emissions. That equates to about 2/3 of the monthly emissions of the average Dutch household. This, for clarity, is not comparable to the inefficiency of any other system of moving money around. Then there's the electronic waste from all of these processes. Because miners compete against each other, they always need to upgrade, so the physical hardware, like computer chips, becomes outdated really quickly. We're talking obsolete in 1 or 2 years, then it's out with the old, in with the new and more powerful. That means a single Bitcoin transaction makes around 355 grams of electronics waste, or a little more than 2 iPhones, or 3/4 of an iPad. So that all seems pretty bad. Between the massive power demand leading to carbon emissions and the arms race of electronics waste, it seems that there is a problem here that desperately needs to be solved. Luckily, just because blockchains have been this way, that doesn't mean they have to be this way. You can change the way blocks are added to the blockchain. The method we described earlier, where lots of supercomputers around the world compete to be one of the ones to solve the super hard math problem, is called proof of work. The literal fact that proof of work requires so much energy is part of what makes it secure. You have to prove that you did a lot of work in order to add a transaction block to the chain. If you didn't have to do all that work, anyone could add blocks to the chain more easily, and lots of people would do it, and hackers could mess things up. But there is another way to make adding and verifying a block hard to do. Instead of proving that you did work, you prove that you have some of the currency. You put some skin in the game, some collateral. You prove that you have a stake in the project, so instead of proof of work, this is proof of stake. Instead of a free-for-all competition, proof of stake means miners have to buy into a lottery for the chance to be one of the users to create or check a block of transactions. Each miner puts up their own amount of cryptocurrency, and then only a few of the miners instead of thousands are selected at random to solve the math problem. And instead of competing against one another, the block is only validated once all of the selected miners have solved the math problem. This means that a miner can't gain an advantage by adding another supercomputer to their setup. The arms race will de-escalate. Proof of stake should cut energy use, the carbon emissions that go with it, and cut down on e-waste, since those computers shouldn't have to work as hard. Hardware that would be entirely obsolete for proof of work can still be used much longer for proof of stake. And this isn't hypothetical. Solana and Cardano are fairly large cryptocurrencies that both use proof of stake. They each have a total market value of around $30 billion. And one of the most popular cryptocurrencies, Ethereum, has proposed to make the switch to this method in the second quarter of 2022. But this This is a complex technical challenge and also a complex cultural challenge, as many Ethereum miners have invested a lot of money in systems that will no longer be as valuable. But it looks like it's definitely going to happen, though of course this is software, and everyone knows launches can be delayed. Experts are estimating that this shift could cut Ethereum's energy use by 99.95%. Bitcoin, on the other hand, will likely never change from proof of work, and so, as long as it exists and thrives, will remain a massive consumer of electricity. Miners could attempt to use more renewable energy or only use energy that is produced during times when there is excess energy, but ultimately, that will be up to individual miners and will be very difficult to track. Regardless, nearly all of the energy used for Bitcoin could be used for something else. So while some cryptocurrencies are already solving this problem, Bitcoin will likely chug along, consuming huge amounts of power every time someone makes a transaction. Like we said up top, we know this stuff is controversial and people have strong perspectives on it. Please be respectful in the comments. No one knows where the future is taking us, but we can all be fairly certain that cryptocurrencies aren't going anywhere anytime soon, and also we can agree that putting less carbon dioxide into the atmosphere would be good. I hope watching this was a good use of your time. I certainly learned a lot from this episode, but you know something that's definitely worth your time? Learning a new language. Babbel is a language learning app that aims to get you speaking naturally in a flash. Babbel teaches real-world practical conversations in short 10-minute interactive lessons, and it's available in 14 languages from Danish to Turkish. Their lessons are designed by professional language teachers to help you start speaking a new language in just 3 weeks. As a SciShow viewer, you'll get up to 65% off when you sign up using our link. Plus, Babbel comes with a 20-day money-back guarantee, so you can see where Babbel takes you on your language learning journey.